Before we begin, just a gentle reminder. If this story brings you a smile or a sleepy sigh, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the work of sleepy storytellers like me, and who knows, it might help someone else fall asleep too. Why being a dentist in the Middle Ages was a nightmare for everyone. Chapter 1. The sound that came from the wrong mouth. Good evening. Take a deep breath. If you're listening to this under the covers, with your pillow just right, and maybe even a cup of tea by your side, congratulations, you're already light years away from any medieval dentist's office, or what passed for one. Close your eyes. Now imagine waking up in a medieval village. There's no alarm clock, but the sound that wakes you up is a scream. A deep, muffled scream that ends with a very creative Latin curse. You open your eyes slowly. You already know what's coming. You're the village dentist, or at least the person with the least rusty pliers and the strongest stomach. Your office is a dark, lopsided room wedged between the forge and the barn. There's one chair, if you can call it that, with leather straps, 2 stools, a makeshift bench made from an overturned bucket, and a table where your instruments rest. A pair of tongs, a hook, a knife, a small hammer, a spoon, a cloth, not exactly clean, and your favorite, the root extractor made with love and a complete absence of anesthesia. You yawn. Put on your apron, or rather, the thick cloth you tied around yourself months ago, now stained in ways no one discusses. Beside the door, your assistant, who is actually a peasant named Hugo, missing half his teeth and helping you now only with his chin, brings in the first patient, a blacksmith, big, loud, and with a canine that decided to rot dead center in his mouth, like a monument to bad luck. You nod. He sits. The chair creaks as if apologizing. You pick up the pliers. He sweats. So do you. There's no mirror, no anesthesia, but there is vinegar, which serves for everything: disinfecting, choking, distracting. You say, "Open your mouth and think of something nice." He asks, "Like what?" You reply, "Like silence." And the procedure begins. The first attempt fails. The tooth moves, but refuses to surrender. The second pull comes with a crack. You hope it's the sound of relief. It's not. There are screams. There's force. There are 3 assistants holding the man down as you pull with the weight of your own body. In the end, you fall back, tooth in hand, with a root still clinging to the pliers. The patient thanks you, then faints. You wipe your forehead with the same cloth, wash the instruments with warm water and a quick prayer, and sigh. It's only the first of the day, but you already know no one wants to see you, and yet they all end up here. Chapter 2. The mystery of the wandering pain. You're already on your 3rd patient of the morning, or maybe the 4th. In your line of work, time doesn't pass. It drags. This one is a 12-year-old boy, cheeks swollen and eyes full of fear. He's been brought in by his grandmother, who insists the pain is caused by a bad wind that entered through his ear and hid inside his molar. You don't disagree. After all, in the Middle Ages, medicine is half practice, half guessing, and 1/3 superstition. Yes, the math doesn't add up, but no one's here for statistics. You examine carefully. The tooth looks intact, but there's swelling behind the gum. You press. The boy screams. The grandmother crosses herself. You offer vinegar. He refuses. You offer a piece of leather to bite. He accepts. As you prepare the extractor, you whisper, "Sometimes pain wanders. It starts in one place and walks around. Today it decided to hide right here." You touch the spot with a heated iron. Not to heal, but to scare the infection, or the wind, or the spirit that some say likes to live in wisdom teeth. The grandmother murmurs a prayer. The boy cries in silence, and you work quickly. Outside your room, you hear a line of hesitant footsteps, and coughing. Lots of coughing. It's market day, and no one wants to chew in pain. You take a deep breath. You manage to remove the tip of the root that was pressing on the nerve. The boy bites the cloth and collapses, relieved. You tell him to rest, avoid hard foods, and not to kiss any goats. The last advice is mostly for the grandmother's amusement. She smiles. That's what you value most in your work. When the silence after the procedure is greater than the silence before, you wash your hands in a basin of warm water and sage leaves, a hygiene attempt or a symbolic gesture, just in case you do it twice, and you prepare the chair for the next one. Because in the Middle Ages, pain is always on time, and it always shows up early. Chapter 3. The Bishop's Tooth and the Final Judgment. The day drags on slowly, like a stubborn mule on a muddy road. Outside, the light starts to shift. That amber shade of late afternoon that makes everything look nobler, even your stained apron. You think about closing the door, but then it opens on its own. On the other side stands a burly man, draped in embroidered fabrics, silver rings, and a faint scent of incense and authority. It's the bishop. You swallow hard. He smiles, or tries to. The attempt is interrupted by a disturbing creak coming from the side of his face. It's the back tooth, he says, the big one, the one of wrath. You invite him to sit, but he doesn't bend easily. He surveys the room with suspicion. The leather-strapped chair, the basin of herbs, the pliers on a cloth that has definitely seen better days. Is it clean? He asks, pointing at the pliers. You smile. Say yes, but don't specify clean of what. The bishop finally sits. The chair groans. You examine. The tooth is swollen hard as a stone and surrounded by a gum that should have been canonized by now for its suffering. Are you sure you wish to remove it? You ask gently. I'm sure I want to stop cursing nuns every time I try to chew bread. Convinced, you heat the hook's tip in the nearby brazier. The bishop's eyes widen. Is that to purify it? He asks. It's to soften it. A lie. It's because the hot iron distracts the patient. The procedure begins. It's slow. There are groans, pauses for prayers. A small spontaneous confession halfway through involving altar wine and an abbey in Leon. But in the end, the tooth yields. You lift it with reverence. It's large, dark, curved like the hook of a sad fisherman. The bishop gazes at it as if it were a relic or a defeated enemy. He stands, thanks you, and before leaving places 3 coins on the table. One more than the usual fee. You don't ask why. Maybe it's gratitude. Maybe it's a bribe so you won't repeat what he screamed during the procedure. You tuck the coins away carefully, and the tooth too. It's always good to have a strong argument when the tithe is late. Chapter 4. The Whisper of the Wisdom Tooth That Never Was. Night has fallen. Outside, the village begins to quiet down. Hammers fall silent, children give up on running, and even the dogs bark with less conviction. The light coming through the poorly fitted wooden window is bluish, cold. You light the candle on the shelf, the same as always. Short, crooked, and smelling faintly of lard. The chair remains in the center of the room, now empty. Your instruments rest on a patched cloth, like soldiers who survived battle. You think about tidying up, but decide to wait 5 more minutes. And then you hear a timid knock at the door. It's a young man. Very young. Nervous eyes, sweaty hands. He introduces himself as a weaver's apprentice and says in a nearly inaudible voice, "My tooth wants out." You ask him to open his mouth. He obeys. Nothing's swollen, nothing's loose, nothing's visible. But you know exactly what's happening. It's the wisdom tooth, that mysterious late-blooming tooth that shows up when life is already hard enough. You nod. It hasn't been born yet, but it's waking up. The boy gulps. Will it hurt? You think, and answer truthfully. Not now. Only when you have to smile at a feast, or chew dried meat on a long journey, or sleep peacefully, thinking it's over. He sighs. You offer a clove to chew. It doesn't heal, but it fools the pain well enough. And smells better than anything else in the room. You chat briefly. about invisible aches, about teeth that never come, about the ones that arrive crooked, and about the idea of extracting something that hasn't even been born, an idea that feels absurd and somehow tempting. In the end, he thanks you and leaves. He carries the clove in his pocket and a little less fear in his eyes. You blow out the candle, and for a moment, there's silence. A deep, comfortable silence that wraps the room like a thick linen blanket. You lie down in the corner, covered by a cloak that smells of old lavender. Close your eyes and smile with the teeth you still have. Tomorrow, others will scream, others will pay, others will spit blood and swear oaths, but for now, there is only quiet. Good night, dentist. You've survived another day. What it was really like to use a bathroom in the Middle Ages. Chapter 5. The Path of Necessity with Questionable Stops. Good evening. Tonight you're not a warrior, not a peasant, not even an enlightened monk. You're just a human with a simple, urgent, non-negotiable need. You have to go to the bathroom. But this isn't the 21st century. You're not in a tiled apartment. There's no flush button, soft toilet paper, or lo-fi playlist playing in the background. You're in the Middle Ages, and your body doesn't care about historical context. You wake in the middle of the night with a persistent discomfort, the kind that won't accept promises. Your mattress, a bundle of straw tied together with hope, creaks as you rise. The floor is cold, and the only candle in the corner has long since given up. You put on your cloak, try not to wake anyone, but the wooden boards betray your every step with creaks and groans of ancient timber. In the corner of the house, near the bucket of grey water, rests your only emergency option, the chamber pot. Made of clay, cracked, and filled with contents you'd rather not see so clearly under moonlight. You assess the situation, take a deep breath, decide to try outside. It's winter. The air bites. The night is so dark it feels thick. You walk slowly, slipping through the back door like someone sneaking up on their own fate. And there it is, the village toilet. A tiny wooden shack, crooked and lonely, with a door that won't close and a smell that defies comprehension. You enter. The latch is a stick jammed into a hole. The floor is muddy, or perhaps something more complex. You'd rather not investigate. At the center, a hole in the ground, surrounded by planks. A spider watches the scene from above, perched with theological patience. Wind whistles in from every side. The walls are mostly symbolic. You position yourself, balance, whisper a short prayer, and carry out your mission with the dignity of someone who knows that not even kings escape this experience. As you step out, you breathe in the cold air like it's perfume. Congratulations, you've survived the medieval bathroom. But the hardest part remains. Washing your hands, you look around and laugh. Not from humor, but from understanding. The Middle Ages have no sink, no soap. There's one shared rag for the entire household. And a reasonable chance of catching something that doesn't have a name yet. You clean your hands as best you can and head back inside. The floor creaks again. The straw mattress welcomes you without judgment. You lie down and promise yourself, once more, to avoid the turnip and fermented bean soup, even knowing that tomorrow you'll forget. Chapter 6. The Suspended Seat and the Nighttime Courage. You wake again, but this time it's morning. Sunlight peeks through the gap in the roof, lighting up dust particles that dance like they're just happy not to be odor. You stretch your arms, crack like old wood, and feel it. Yes, again. It's amazing how, even without coffee, the medieval body runs with cruel punctuality. This time, you decide to try a different place, the communal toilet behind the church. They say it's cleaner, which, in the Middle Ages, means fewer living things inside. You walk there, passing gardens, chickens, and the butcher who always sings off-key. The church toilet is an ambitious project, a wooden bench suspended over a trench. No doors, with a view of the fields and anyone passing by. You climb carefully. The planks creak, the structure sways slightly as if questioning your presence. You sit and wait. The wind blows upward, a rare and absolutely unwanted phenomenon. You breathe through your nose, by strategy, not preference. Beside you, someone has left leaves, probably nettle. You quickly learn not to trust leaves. While you do your business, you gaze at the horizon, a field, a cow, a monk in the distance, harvesting beets. It's almost a contemplative moment if you ignore the wet echo beneath you and the smell that seems to be trying to philosophize with you. You finish, clean yourself with caution and faith, and descend like someone who survived a crossing. On the way back, a child points at you and laughs. You wave, somewhat proudly. Going to the bathroom and making it out whole is, after all, a small daily victory. You return home feeling renewed, or maybe just emptied. Both are good signs. Chapter 7. The Godmother's Bucket and the Secrets of the Upper Floor. It's late afternoon. The sun is retreating behind the hills, painting the village in a golden hue that can't quite mask the smell of the animal pen. You're at your godmother's house, a stern, practical woman with very strong opinions about where everything should go, including the necessities bucket. Yes, because today the bathroom is portable and it's kept under the stairs. It's a dark wooden bucket reinforced with iron rings, a solid piece with presence, almost imposing. It's always covered with a wooden plank that used to be a barrel lid and now serves as a seat. And, with luck, a moral barrier. Your godmother explains with all seriousness, only use it at night. We don't want to attract wolves outside or ghosts inside. You don't ask how the bucket repels ghosts, and frankly, you don't want to know. During dinner, thin soup, hard bread, and a conversation about the beet harvest. The bucket remains there in the shadows of the corner, like a silent character. Later, when everyone's asleep and the house sinks into silence, you wake up and feel the call. With quiet steps, you climb down from bed. The stairs creak like they're protesting. You grab the candle, light it carefully, and approach the bucket. It's a moment of reflection, of courage, of balance. You lift the lid. The smell greets you with an uncomfortable familiarity. You sit, and there, in the middle of silence, the crackling candle and the occasional sound of mice philosophizing beneath the floorboards, you do what needs to be done. When finished, you replace the lid. Scatter a handful of straw over the top, out of respect, not effectiveness, and return to bed. The room is cold, but you cover yourself and smile with your eyes closed. Because despite everything, it's nice not to have to step outside in the dark. And because that night, the bucket was kind. Chapter 8. The Tower of Relief and the Sound of the Long Drop. Morning breaks with mist. You wake up in a castle. Not as a noble, of course. You're a servant. You sleep on the lower floors, between rough blankets and walls that never dry. But today, you got lucky. You were summoned to help upstairs. And up there, beyond dusty tapestries and staircases that spiral into breathlessness, lies one of medieval architecture's greatest secrets. The latrine, not a chamber pot, not a hole in the ground. A real latrine with stone walls, a narrow little window, and, most impressively, a stone seat with a hole, placed strategically above an opening that leads, well, directly into the inner courtyard. You're instructed to use it discreetly, not out of modesty, but because occasionally there are knights passing below. Upon entering, you feel the damp air, cold, and a light breeze rising from the opening with questionable intentions. The sound of wind mixed with the distant echo of voices reminds you this experience is shared, not in time, but in space. You sit. The stone is cold, solid, unforgiving, like life in the Middle Ages. You steady yourself carefully, and then you hear the sound of the fall, a long sound, curiously liberating. You reflect. How many kings, how many monks, how many ladies in absurdly voluminous dresses have experienced this exact moment? All of them, seated over the same historical hole, trying to maintain dignity while the world continued. Down below, you finish. Wipe with a coarse cloth left hanging from a rusty hook. You bow slightly toward the opening, as if thanking a useful abyss. As you leave, you close the door and look to the sky. Another day begins. And you, amid so much uncertainty, at least have the certainty of having survived another trip to a medieval bathroom. What happened when you got sick in ancient Rome? Chapter 9. The slave's cold and the fury of the lesser gods. Good evening. Tonight you wake up in a stone cubicle. The ceiling is low, the floor is hard, and the mattress is just the illusion of straw over splintered wood. You sneeze twice. And in ancient Rome, that's already a sign of something serious. You try to ignore it, get up with effort. Your body aches, your throat burns, your eyes itch. Your toga, thin, rough, smelling of oil and dust, feels heavier than a centurion's helmet. You sneeze again. Beside you, another slave eyes you with suspicion. Are you going to die? He asks, genuinely, almost hopefully. You shake your head. Maybe, maybe not. Your job today would have been to haul amphorae around the city. But in this state, with this fever, not happening. You're taken to the house doctor, a middle-aged man with a stained tunic, stained hands, and a look that says, "I've seen worse." Some even survived. He examines you with something that looks like a bricklayer's trowel. Or maybe it is a bricklayer's trowel. He mutters something about imbalanced fluids, talks about bile, phlegm, humours, and Jupiter being in a bad mood this week. He asks for a bit of your blood, not to analyze, just to remove. Says the bad needs to come out. You're laid on a bench, a tourniquet, a knife, a clay bowl, bloodletting, because in Rome being sick means being too full. He says this will help. You say you're getting dizzy. He smiles, says that's a good sign. At the end, you're given a poultice made from crushed garlic, boiled wine, and a pinch of sand for texture. You rub it on your chest. It stinks, it burns, it doesn't help. But you feel like someone's taking care of you, and that, even in ancient Rome, is something. You return to your corner, shiver a bit, but manage to lie down. Next to you, your colleague asks again, "Are you going to die?" You don't answer, but for a moment you chuckle, because in ancient Rome, a cold is an enigma, and the treatment, an adventure. Chapter 10. Venus's leeches and the backyard goat. The second day begins with sweat. Not sweat from labor, but the feverish, sticky kind that feels like your soul is trying to escape through your skin. You wake up with your toga glued to your body. The straw mattress, now damp, resembles a countryside soup. The doctor is called again. This time, he's accompanied by his teenage daughter, an apprentice and enthusiast of methods involving crushed leaves and soft-spoken prayers. She carries a basket, and inside the basket something moves. Leeches. "Gifts from Venus," she says, with a smile far too calm. You're laid on a mat. The doctor points to your legs and belly. "We'll relieve the humours," he says, like someone about to air out a room. The leeches are placed with care. 1, 2, 3. You try not to look, but you hear them and feel them. It's a strange sensation, like someone sticking cold coins onto your skin. Coins with teeth and opinions of their own. You close your eyes. Meanwhile, the doctor burns some incense, says the gods are watching, and that illness is often punishment for impure thoughts. You don't mention the dream you had about a red-haired patrician last night. The leeches are removed one by one. Bloated, satisfied, you feel lighter, or maybe just paler. For dessert, they rub a paste on your chest made of olive oil, honey, and charcoal to balance the inner vapors. And then the goat. Yes, a goat is brought in. It's positioned beside you, sitting like a grumpy old man. The doctor places his hand on its head and murmurs words in ancient Latin, asking the goat to absorb the pain, the heat, and the bad intentions. The goat yawns. So do you. The ritual ends. You return to your corner. In ancient Rome, it's never really clear where treatment ends and theatre begins. But oddly, you're starting to feel a little better, or at least entertained. Chapter 11. The Wasp Amulet and Aunt Agrippina's Recipe. You wake up in silence. Not because you're better, but because your voice is gone. Your throat is as rough as a mountain trail. You try to cough, but your body only manages a muffled sound like a cracked vase trying to sing. The fever, however, seems to have eased slightly, which by Roman standards means you might still survive without becoming an offering. Today's treatment is overseen by a new figure, Aunt Agrippina. She's not a doctor, but she's respected, has 7 children and has never been sick, which in Rome is enough of a resume to give medical advice. She brings an infusion, says it's a tea made from iris root, rose petals, red wine, 3 barley grains and a bit of chicken bone. Ground, of course. The mixture is thick, warm and smells alive. You drink it slowly, with faith. Agrippina then hangs a small amulet around your neck, a leather pouch with a dried wasp inside. She smiles. She died stinging a senator, carries strength. You thank her. The doctor arrives late, still looking sleepy. He examines you with an unsure expression, then asks, "Have you dreamed of crows this week?" You shake your head. He scribbles something on a wax tablet and murmurs, "Good, they only show up before the end." You don't ask what he means by the end. In the afternoon, the room gets warm. You sleep in intervals, hearing distant prayers, roosters arguing in the yard, and someone beating laundry on a stone at the village fountain. When you wake up, you notice the wasp pouch is now hanging on the wall. You don't remember putting it there, but you decide not to touch it, just in case. Chapter 12. The Healing by Sigh and the Wine that Speaks Latin. The room is cooler this morning. You wake up with less weight on your chest, less trembling in your hands, and a faint suspicion that maybe, just maybe, you're getting better. The cough is still there, but now it sounds more like a memory than a warning. You sit up slowly and observe the room. The spent candle, the cloth hanging to dry, the wasp amulet still silent, perhaps proud. Today, the doctor arrives early. He's calmer. Brings a small glass vial sealed with wax and a leaf-shaped stamp. "A gift from the temple of Asclepius," he says. "Ancient recipe, blend of myrrh, olive oil, sweet wine, and silence." You ask if it's meant to be drunk. He smiles. It's meant to be smelled and to remind you that you're alive. You breathe in slowly. The aroma is strong, sweet, and almost seems to hum in Latin. Something between endure and accept. Aunt Agrippina walks in soon after with a bowl of broth. Warm, thin, with 2 bay leaves and a chunk of bread so hard it feels like it's passed through generations. You eat, slowly, and realize it tastes like home, or like whatever feels safe. In the afternoon, you're allowed out into the courtyard. The sun touches your skin like it hasn't seen you in days. The sounds of the city return to your ears. Cartwheels, children shouting in enthusiastic Latin, a dog who firmly believes he's a lion. You take a deep breath. The doctor takes his leave, offering one final piece of advice. Avoid the north winds, green grapes, evil eyes, and maybe the market cheese. You agree to everything, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. That night, you lie down with a calmer body, slower breath, and the wasp amulet now resting under your pillow like a guard with open antennae. You close your eyes, and for the first time in days, sleep without fear of not waking up. Because even in ancient Rome, among leeches, goats, and wine that seems to talk, sometimes you do get better. Why working as a medieval baker could get you killed. Chapter 13. The Song of the Wheat and the Wrath of the Oven. Good evening. Tonight you are a baker, a simple, sleepy, and slightly flowered medieval baker. You wake before the village. Way before. The sky is still dark. The roosters are negotiating who gets to crow first, and you already have your feet sunk in flour up to the ankles, as if stepping into warm snow. The bakery isn't really a bakery. It's a stone room with a low ceiling and a single window, more for letting out smoke than letting in light. In the corner, the oven, a stone monster, rounded, black with soot, and always hungry. You begin with the wheat, or rather, but the flour, packed in poorly stitched sacks, stacked in a corner that should be dry but rarely is. The flour floats in the air like an unsettled mist. It gets in your nose, your eyes, your thoughts. You sneeze, that's normal. You're not worried. Yet, the dough is prepared in silence. Water, salt, a sourdough starter you've been feeding for weeks and treat like a sickly cousin. You mix it all with a spoon that looks more like a shovel. You knead the dough with your hands, your fists, your shoulders, your soul. Meanwhile, the oven is lit with dry wood and a breath of courage. The temperature rises quickly. The air begins to vibrate. You can feel the tips of your beard starting to crisp. You whistle an old melody, more for yourself than for the bread, but the bread seems to listen. You shape, you wait, you watch, and then you bake. The smell is good, warm, inviting, but you know what comes next. Because working here isn't just about making bread, it's about surviving an oven that spits sparks, a ceiling that sweats heat, and the constant threat that if the flour in the air builds up too much, well, one spark is all it takes. Still, you keep going, because there's something sacred in feeding the village, even if one day the bread comes with just a hint of panic. Chapter 14. The Flour, the Misfire, and Mistress Marilda. It's already mid-morning. The village is waking, and with it come the first customers and the first risks. You remove the loaves with a wooden peel. Some come out perfect, golden, firm, smelling of quiet triumph. Others slightly scorched, or slightly raw, or both, depending on your perspective and the mysterious mood of each corner of the oven. And then comes Mistress Marilda. She doesn't knock, she pushes, wearing her red wool cloak, 2 baskets, and the absolute conviction that yesterday's bread was too soft. She demands to see all the loaves, pokes, prods, critiques, rejects 3, chooses 2, and threatens to return with her husband's knife. Not to use, just to make a point. You smile. It's the best you can do. She pays with 3 eggs and a chunk of cheese that may have seen better days, but you accept. Because bread, in the Middle Ages, isn't always sold with coins. After her, others follow. A monk who only eats saltless bread. A farmer who swears your loaf saved a pig from death. A child asking for bread shaped like an animal, but can only pay with 2 buttons and a feather. You give what you can and try to keep pace, but the oven doesn't wait. You get distracted and a tray burns. Smoke rises like a warning. You rush, fling the oven door open, and in that moment a spark dances through the air. The flour. It had been floating, invisible, subtle as dust. And now, it catches the light for a second. Nothing explodes, but the scare is real. You drop to the floor, sweating more than you already were. The smoke clears. The oven keeps roaring. The bread survives, though some come out darker than intended. You take a deep breath and think about switching jobs, maybe a cobbler, or a monk, or a storyteller, but then you smell the next loaf baking and decide to stay, after all. It's just another day, another loaf, another chance not to become charcoal. Chapter 15. The Butcher's Knife and the Half-Baked Bread. It's nearly noon. The oven still burns like an old dragon, tired, but still capable of breathing out enough heat to bake or threaten. You pull out the last batch of the morning, a rushed load, dough that didn't rest long enough. You know some of these loaves are raw inside, but on the outside, golden, beautiful, ready to deceive. You hesitate, but the line outside won't wait. Among the customers, there he is, Ottavio, the butcher. Tall, broad, always wearing a stained apron and holding a knife that seems permanently attached to his hand. He walks in, eyes the bread, and grabs the biggest one, squeezes it, rolls it in his palms, takes a bite. Silence. You wait. Sweat drips. The bread crackles faintly inside. The crust groans. Ottavio chews, swallows, looks at you. Half-baked. You smile gently. Artisanal. He doesn't laugh. You offer another, a smaller, firmer one. He takes it. But before leaving, he taps his knife against the counter, just lightly, as if to say, "Careful, you understand, and make yourself a promise. Less haste, more fermentation." After him, a woman enters with a baby tied to her back and a look that says, "If you have fresh bread, I might cry with joy." You hand her one, a good one, still warm. She smiles. And for a moment, you forget the butcher, the smoke, the suspended flour. You remember why you do this. Not for the danger, but for the smell. And for that rare moment when someone bites into a piece of bread and smiles with their eyes closed. Chapter 16. The night bread and the crust-wrapped exhaustion. The sun begins to fall. The village changes its sound. Hammers slow. Goats return. Children decide to run using just one leg at a time. And you keep going. Because, contrary to appearances, the baker doesn't finish with the bread. He finishes when the oven goes out, and it's still hot. You bake the last loaves, smaller, simpler. Night bread, made with what's left of the dough of the time of your patients. While they bake, you sit on the floor, back against the stone wall, hands covered in flour, eyes half open. You hear the soft crackle of the oven and the quiet hiss of the bread rising slowly, like a good thought. The heat is still strong, but now it comforts, like an old blanket that warms only your feet. Outside, a child peeks through the window. You wave, she disappears, returns with a basket. "Mama sent me. She says she'll take crooked bread if it's warm." You hand her two, one normal, one crooked. She smiles, runs off, leaving behind the smell of soup in the air. You close the oven's little door, put away the peel, wipe up the bits of dough with a cloth that, honestly, doesn't help much. And then, like every good tired baker, you pick a small loaf, still warm, split it open, and add a piece of butter. Simple. Silent. You take a bite. Close your eyes. And think, if everything explodes tomorrow, may it at least explode smelling like fresh bread. You lie down on the bench nearby, covered with a folded flour sack. The oven fades slowly, and you fall asleep, in peace, with crust. Why having sex in the Middle Ages was more dangerous than romantic. Chapter 17. The Straw Bed and the Church's Imaginary Manual. Good evening. Tonight, you are not an ordinary peasant. Or rather, you are, but with slightly less agricultural intentions. You're in love, or at the very least quite interested. But we're in the Middle Ages, and here, between you and pleasure, stands a line of obstacles, and all of them are armed, with dogma, rules, and wool blankets. You look at your beloved, or desired, or convenient person, and think, maybe tonight. But before any approach, you must calculate. There are rules, many. Rule number 1, not on Sundays, or Wednesdays, or Fridays, or during Lent, or Advent, or if a saint is having a birthday. Rule number 2, no obvious desire, no excessive pleasure, no overly creative noises. Rule number 3, the bed must be respected like an altar, even if it's full of straw, ticks, and uncertainty. You take a deep breath. Try to keep your thoughts pure, but your bed does not cooperate. It creaks at the slightest movement. not a discreet creak. A loud groan, long, like an old bishop being woken up. You sit, the bed protests. You lie down, the bed protests more vehemently. Outside, everything is quiet. Inside, it sounds like you're trying to tame an invisible donkey. Your partner tries to stifle a laugh. So do you. It's an intimate moment, yet clumsy. And then you hear it. A distant bell. Midnight. Time for the monk's prayers. You freeze. Is it a sin? Can they hear? Are the saints watching? You hesitate. Consider backing out. But then, a hand touches yours. And you remember, in the Middle Ages, love was almost always an act of courage. Even if wrapped in rough wool, even if interrupted by a cat jumping on the bed, even if followed by fleas. Chapter 18, The Monk's Manual and the Judging Blanket. You wake before the rooster, not out of habit, but out of guilt. Last night was gentle, awkward, and somehow beautiful. But now, under the pale morning light filtering through the crooked window, everything feels more visible, especially the sins you might have committed. You sit on the bed. The straw creaks. The smell in the room is a mix of wool, damp wood, and poor judgment. Your partner is still asleep, and in a confused impulse, you cover them with another blanket. Maybe as an apology, maybe as penance. You step out of the room. The first person you run into is the monk who visits the village houses once a week, handing out blessings and advice about everything. Today, he carries a rolled-up scroll and a look that says, "I know things." He says nothing directly, just hands you a pamphlet. It's an excerpt from the Liber Penitentialis, a moral guide to avoid excesses of the flesh. You thank him with a hesitant smile. He walks away. You read. There are detailed topics, incredibly specific. One says, embracing without marital intent is forbidden. Another insists it's best to keep a pillow between the bodies. A third recommends praying before, during, and after, depending on stamina. You hide the pamphlet between the floorboards, just in case someone sees it. On your way back, you hear neighbors whispering, nothing concrete. But in the Middle Ages, even a soft chuckle carries judgment. You return to the room. The bed is still warm. Your companion wakes, stretching slowly. You look at each other, smile, and silently decide that today might be a good day to fetch firewood, separately, with time and space to forget what the church remembers. Because deep down, medieval love isn't forbidden, it just needs planning and silence. And if possible, a bed that doesn't make noise. Chapter 19. The sin board and the cow's judgmental stare. It's late afternoon. You're out in the fields, pretending to weed, but thinking about other things. The wind carries the scent of hay and judgment. The village feels quieter today, or maybe you're just more alert. Since that night, everything has shifted slightly. The looks, the comments. The way Mistress Marilda left a piece of stale bread at your door with a note that read, "To calm the instincts." You're not even sure what to do with it. Maybe eat it. Maybe keep it for emotional emergencies. Later, in the village common hall, you come across something new. A sin board. Yes, a wooden plaque hanging near the well with inscriptions carved by knife, likely by an inspired or bored monk. Among the listed sins, sleeping together without intent to marry, minor but repeated offenses are serious. Speaking carnal words after the 9th hour, moderate, exceptions for those with fever. Touching someone's navel with your own finger, serious depending on the tone. Thinking about someone with less than 3 blankets of distance, suspicious. You read, you laugh, you pretend not to relate. But deep down, you feel like the cow in the neighboring field is judging you. When you return home, someone has left coarse salt at your doorstep. You decide to leave it there, just in case. In the Middle Ages, between desires and duties, everything blends together. Faith, fear, affection, and superstition. and the heart that no one regulates quite as well as they think. Chapter 20. The fleas of love and the tea of redemption. Night arrives with wind. You're lying down once again on your straw bed. The same one that creaks. The same one that houses 3 resident fleas and a thread of emotional courage. This time you're alone, not for lack of desire, but out of caution. The past week has been intense. Suspicious glances, drawn-out blessings, stale bread delivered as unsolicited advice. Even the blacksmith asked with a crooked grin if you needed nails to reinforce the bed. You pretend not to understand, and answer yes, for structural safety. Tonight, before bed, you made some tea. A simple herbal tea, made from plants that Aunt Agrippina swears soothe the spirits. No one's quite sure which spirits exactly, but the tea tastes like wet roof tiles and smells like lukewarm hope. You drink it slowly, feel your body unwind, and you think, in the Middle Ages, to love was like carrying a leaky bucket. It took constant effort, vigilance, and still left traces. But it was worth it, even with the rules, even with the creaking, even with the risk of confessing everything to the priest in improvised Latin, because deep down, no one wants to just survive. We want to feel, even if there's a layer of wool in the way. You settle in, so do the fleas. The bed creaks, but this time, in peace. And when you close your eyes, one simple thought remains. At least it's not Sunday.